And now to a difficult subject that has been in the news a lot lately: sex trafficking and related crime. The fact is, the girls being trafficked are younger now, and the sex traffickers are more violent. Christine Moreland is the executive director of an organization called The More We Love. They are really at the center in King County of the rescue effort. They have a shelter in Renton. They are at max capacity currently. She told me this morning they took 128 crisis calls in 12 days earlier this month. That is pretty incredible. In many cases, that's a police officer calling her up in the middle of the night saying, I've got, this girl. I just picked her up off Aurora. She's in the back of my cop car. Instead of taking her to jail, she says she's ready to get out of the life. Can you help? That's really how it goes down in many cases. So they rescue women and children in homelessness and currently have 22 women and 29 children at their facility, which is fully funded by private donations. Here is part of my conversation with Christine Moreland from The More We Love.
We are beyond capacity. So we have actually we operate right now out of a facility that will allow for us to expand. So we are currently at the 32 beds, but we are looking at expanding up to the full capacity of 109 beds. And the real intention in doing that is first and foremost giving the women and children a longer term stay. So we don't want to just be checking boxes and meeting the crisis, but we really want to stabilize and give pathways to employment and housing. And in order to do that, we need to be able to have access to more bed space so that we can keep them with us longer. And then we also want to respond to the crisis that we know we have right now in Washington State, and that is that we do not have any youth beds or any beds available for young girls who are being exposed to trafficking. And because we are, number 2 right now in the country for children being exploited, especially out on Aurora, I feel it's our responsibility to the community to expand our shelter beds to accommodate youth. So that is our next mission.
Now, Mike Dunn of Dunn Lumber, notoriety, of course, if you've been in Washington any length of time, you know about Dunn Lumber, especially if you've done any construction, right? He's among one of the big donors for The More We Love. He really believes in their mission and rescuing these girls and women and putting lives back together. And Dunn recently paid to put this sign up along a stretch of Aurora Avenue North in Seattle to discourage buyers of sex. Really. One of the signs reads, "My dad was buying girls my age, 16. He no longer felt safe to me. Real daughter of a sex buyer." That was not a manufactured graphic marketing scheme. That really came, from a girl talking about her dad, finding out that he was buying sex. And Moreland crafted that message, she says, very intentionally based off interviews she's had with some of the Johns who've, gotten out of the life over the years. And many of them, she told me, said the only thing that would have stopped me, the only thing that would have deterred me is if somebody that I'm close to, somebody that I love, found out what I was doing. Being discovered would be the thing that would make you want to give that up, right? The shame of being found out really was the deterrent. And so that's why the marketing scheme is what it is. And that's why that sign is up along Aurora Avenue North. I've been seeing a lot of people posting about it on social media. It's garnered a lot of interest, even nationally. It's an interesting approach. So whether or not it's effective in deterring buyers remains to be seen. So that sex trafficking stretch there along Aurora Avenue North, that's not new. It's been bad for, of course, decades up there. It's considered to be probably the second most prolific area for the sex trade in the entire nation, from what I'm told. Moreland told me city and county officials are to blame. In her opinion, they are basically promoting, allowing all of this to continue when they have the tools that they could use to shut it down.
I'll just point out the obvious. It is our policy. It is our lack of ability in Washington State to hold the traffickers, those that are exploiting these young girls, the gangs, the pimps, truly accountable for selling human bodies, but not just human bodies, our babies, our girls, our daughters, our sisters, right? I mean, the fact that you can purchase a human being, and that is a misdemeanor charge rather than a felony charge. And if we just made that one adjustment right there, it could start to lower the demand. But unfortunately, our policy isn't working in the favor of protecting the young girls that are being exploited out here. And the level of violence that they endure, I would just say, a politician or anybody who is otherwise fighting against some of these laws that could really protect our girls, spend a day out on the track, spend a day out on Aurora, just talk to some of these young women who are being violated and victimized at the highest level. It's shameful. I think the other piece of it is that we do have a cattle call. I've said this a couple times, but I don't know. I try not to involve myself in social media too much, but unfortunately, it's just our world. And the other day, my son was on TikTok, and he sent me over a TikTok, and it was a pimp, and he was in the middle of Aurora, and he was cattle calling, bring your girls here, exploit your girls here. This is where the pimping is good, and our gun charges are less. You can have multiple gun charges before those are taken off your hands, or you spend multiple days, even a night or two in jail. It's yeah, it's a criminal zone. We're enabling it, completely enabling it.
One of the frustrations Moreland shared with me in our conversation on Tuesday is the fact that the King County Prosecutor's Office desperately wants to go after these traffickers. It takes a lot of resources to do that, right? And the King County Prosecutor's Office reached out to the King County Council last year ago this time, actually, it was June of 2025, and said, we need at least two more prosecutors in our office to handle these cases. They have a backlog of a ton of these cases, and they were denied, basically told there's no money for it. She was extremely frustrated about that. So I reached out to the King County Council today to ask about that. And Councilman Reagan Dunn's chief of staff, Cody, confirmed information for me. He said, yes, in fact, he sent me a document via email showing that Lisa Mannion in the King County Prosecutor's Office shared frustration initially back in June when they made the request, and then in October when she found out they're not going to get the prosecutors they need to go after these traffickers. She was extremely frustrated. What she asked for, and I'll just read this so I don't mess this up. She says, the PAO, that's the prosecuting attorney's office, respectfully requests two case development specialists to assist law enforcement in their investigation and identification of the individuals working to exploit and abuse victims. She went on to talk about the amount of time and effort it takes, a lot of hours to, go back through social media on these cases and really get at the worst of the worst offenders. But it's not being funded at this point by the King County Council. And Christine Moreland at The More We Love, hugely frustrated. She says, where are our priorities, right? Especially when you've got the public defender's office in King County to provide free of charge public defense for the criminals. On the prosecution side, they aren't getting the resources that they need to really go after these players and save these girls. I mean, that's really what it is all about. I also learned yesterday that Christine Moreland and The More We Love is actually partnered with Andrea Suarez and We Heart Seattle. They're We Heart Seattle and Andrea Suarez, the group that's really trying to get at helping the addicts on the streets of Seattle, get them into recovery and then housing and partner with them long term, rather than do the housing first model that many cities are having to move away from because of pressure from the federal government. But it's pretty impressive to see those two working hand in hand. I wanted to put up a last minute update to this story I just got right before we are recording today's podcast, because yesterday on Wednesday, Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson put out a press release about a recent emphasis patrol up along that stretch of Aurora Avenue, where there's been a street takeover by people that are just simply fed up with the fact the city is allowing this to continue. So part of the release she put out said this: during the effort, this emphasis patrol, 3 minors were identified and connected with protective services. 10 adults were transported to access shelter, advocacy, and other support services. As part of the effort to prevent the sexual exploitation of minors, investigators identified 6 individuals seeking to exploit children. Those individuals were arrested and charged with felony offenses. I think that's actually a pretty big deal, and it would not have happened if the folks weren't demanding that law and order be restored in their community. So, hats off to the mayor for responding and this emphasis patrol that went down. Some arrests made. Hopefully, the prosecution will follow through. That's the problem. Oftentimes, these cases linger for weeks, months, some cases years without prosecution. And then you can't even go after the guy that you originally, knew to be a prolific trafficker. But it's something. It's encouraging.